I'll just focus. So Landmark is designed where like the goal of it, right? Because I remember asking my friend, I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, why does this matter, right? And she's like, well, the goal is to figure out why you are the way you are, right? Like what's shaped and molded you so far in your life to get to here, right? And really having awareness around that. Because when you have awareness around that and you really understand, like, this is what made me me, this is why I react like this is, whatever it is, versus saying, this is just the way I am, right? Most humans, that's what they say, like, this is just how I am. But what we know is that you were born, you were this little kid running around or sitting there just playing by yourself or whatever it was. And then life happened. Things happened during your life, right? There's obviously, we all have like innate things that we're born with, that we have personality things, but there's things that are really like developed or come out through experiences, right? And so at the seminar, they talked about something called Strongsuits. And how they labeled this, they said strong suits are three, they're our biggest strengths. And typically they say there's three. One forms in our early childhood. One forms in like the age of like around like 10 or so, like somewhere in that bracket. And I can look up exactly. And one later in our teens. But it varies, but they say there's usually, those are like pivotal times of development for us, right? And these are strengths, some of our biggest strengths that we have, that also in excess, or when abused, or when it goes over, actually becomes some of our biggest weaknesses. Okay. And it was really interesting to listen to this. And as we went through the seminar, a big part of this was, again, understanding why you are the way you are. And the point of that is that when you have self-awareness and you can really take control, you can take control and not just be like, well, the universe or this is how I am, and just like, blame or point fingers or be like, woe is me. Instead, it's an empowerment to go, wait a second, like I actually reacted certain ways to like things that happened in my life. And that became a way that I reacted to things. Okay. For example, one of my guys, when we were in Alliance back in, I remember 2008, he was sharing about this, and he said, he's like, oh, that's interesting. He's like, I would say that one of my strengths is the ability to like make people laugh, right? Or like put them in a good mood. And he's like, and when I think about that, he's like, that first start, because I was like, where did it first start? Like, go back and think. So I want you guys thinking right now. All right. I want you guys thinking. Let's pause. Let me pause what I'm saying. And I want you guys to just start writing down like some of your strengths. Like if someone said like, so what are some of your strengths? What are some of your like best qualities? Maybe you're super determined. You've got a great work ethic. Maybe you're a protector, right? Like one of my guys, he's like, I'm always like protecting people. Like I hate bullies. And like, like that's something I've always prided myself on and make people feel really welcome. And so just like think about like what are some of like your best traits, characteristics, strengths, and because we'll look at this and this specific. So they had us do this, right? So we made a list, and I'm going to actually just give you guys a minute to write some stuff down before I just keep talking. So what are some of your just biggest strengths? Just write them all down. You're allowed to brag right now. Don't be humble. So think about for you. All right. Are you super funny? Are you a great leader? Do you have a great work ethic? Are you a great listener? Are you like, what are some of your best qualities? All right, so write them down. Write them down. All right, and they had us write these down just to start kind of like evaluating, like looking at them, because again, they said, these aren't just things that you are necessarily born with. I mean, they were in you, but they were drawn out by a certain experience, like something happened, right? And so one of my guys, Andres, that I was just talking about with ability to, like a great sense of humor, like just like really lighthearted, always made people feel really good, and he's like, he's like, when I think about it, he's like, I think that it goes back. He's like, I remember like when my parents got divorced, and my mom was just like really sad. And I just wanted to make her laugh, and I just wanted to make her smile. And so I would put on these performances, right? And he's like, I'd come in the living room and I would like have a microphone, I would sing, I would do stuff just to like make her smile. And by the way, that became a really big strength of his, right? By the way, he's like a top actor now in New York. And he's like, I remember that being something that brought me a lot of joy, was being able to, like do that. And that became something I was just like really good at, and just people around me, like making people smile and making them feel good. Right. One of my guys, Adriano, he was sharing, he's like, I think that a similar thing where just trying to make his mom feel good. His dad passed when he was 10 years old. He's like, I remember when my dad passed, my mom just wasn't in a good place. And actually he shared too, he's like, I think that at that time, actually my like, one of the characteristics, like he is so like driven, he's so independent, like he's like a go-getter, right? And he's like, I think that when my dad passed, like I remember feeling like I needed to step up, I needed to be the man of the house, right? And he's like, and so that like, I just like looked at things different. He's like, even though I was like 10 years old or 11, he's like, I wanted to be there for my mom. And I was like, what do we need to do? Like helping taking care of the house. Like I knew I wanted to like have businesses. My dad had multiple businesses, and so that was a big, that going through that was a big, it molded who he was in a big way. And this guy's a butt kicker. He ended up running 2 branches with us, was a top performer, All-American scholarship winner, was able to earn college credits as a freshman, going to Boston College because they had Dr. Victoria Crittenton was there at that time, and Cutco was part of the curriculum, which was really cool. But it was just like, wow, to see that. I remember one of my guys, Mario, like he, and I remember him sharing, he's like, I'm one of 6 kids. He's like, one of his strengths is definitely like his humor, right? Like he's very witty, he's fun, people love to be around him. And as he thought about that, he's like, yeah, I remember being little and I'm like one of 6 kids, right? He's like, and I always like wanted to get attention. And so like, that's how like I would get attention, either getting in trouble, he's like, or, cracking funny jokes or whatever. And then like everyone would laugh and everyone would pay attention to me. Right. And so I was like, I became like the stand-up comedian. And so he'd be like there with all his siblings or like with his parents and, say jokes or, whatever it was. And for some people, it wasn't, such fun things. One of my other guys said one of his, like when he was younger, he used to get made fun a lot. He's like, I remember like I used to get picked on. I used to get made fun of, like, and it really like brought me down. And I was this like small, scrawny kid. He's like, and then like, I grew up, he's like, yeah, this crazy, like he was like the small kid that people picked on and then became the huge guy no one effed with, right? And so he like grew into this like huge dude in high school. I played football, like he was like, one of the linemen. And, he's like, I've always, I've been, one of my like, strengths is like the ability to like protect people, make people feel safe, all that stuff. And he was sharing like, he's like, he's like, as we walked through this and like some other people were sharing, he's like, I realized like, I think that that's where, that came from, because like, I didn't want people to feel the way I did, and I just remember being like, I want to be able to like help others feel safe. Right. Because I used to be so scared. Like I was so scared I was going to get beat up or I was going to get thrown in a trash can or something was going to happen when I was younger. And so that really like shaped. And so it's a, something. And so they were just sharing. But by the way, the caveat with this and what we like dove into, and I want you guys looking at this and thinking about, is that it's not just something that a strength that developed through something, but it's also like your strong suits are the ones that are some of your biggest strengths that can also be your biggest weaknesses, right? Which, by the way, for Andres, like the humor and even Mario, like those work, because on the strength part, right, they make people laugh or they make people feel happy or joy or whatever it was. But on the negative end is that they had this like persona, right? They felt like they always had to have like this, like, so people counted on them, right? To like bring the smiles, bring whatever. And so many times that meant that they were ignoring how they were feeling, or they weren't being true to where they were at. And so it caused this where they felt like a imposter, right? Like, I'm really not this happy or whatever. And like people didn't know. And it actually ended up putting Anders into really bad depression at some points of his life. And people didn't even know that, right? Because he was so good at like putting on a show, right? He's an actor. And so people didn't know that. And so it was a big weakness for him, where he could never show his true feelings, or he didn't feel like he could, or whatever it was. And that caused issues for him, right? And this shows itself different ways. Like for me, one of my strong suits is my work ethic. All right. Another is my independence. Like those are very big strengths of mine. My family knows that. But they're also big weaknesses, because I had a huge work ethic. And I'm like, okay, where did my work ethic come from? Right. I was expelled my sophomore year, but I remember thinking to myself, like, actually, like I always worked really hard, like since I was younger. And I was like, no, it was more like my parents being like, you need to be a leader. You're the oldest of four. Everyone looks up to you. Right. And so that was more of what created like the leader in me since I was little, was my parents telling me like, look, you're the oldest of four. Like they look up to you. Right. And that happened. But as I looked, I'm like, okay, where did my work ethic come, right? And I was like, oh, wow, I guess it was my sophomore year when I was expelled from school. And so I was expelled and I had to finish the curriculum from home. And so I had to work on my own, right? Like I didn't have a teacher, I didn't have a homeschooler, like I was just reading the books, taking the tests, and like keeping up with everybody, which I was able to, and work from home. But I really had to, I built a really great work ethic to make sure I kept up with everybody and kept up with all my things. And I think that's really where that developed, of not getting behind, not being a screw up, not being a F up, whatever it was. And what I realized, and that became a really big strength, right? It's brought me a lot in my life, my work ethic. But the negative part is that I'm a workaholic at many times in my life. And it's something I'm working on to be like, okay, like I need to spend more time with family, do stuff. I love to work. Like I love to like stay busy. Right. And that's the workaholic part. And like where I'm always working and don't have time for people is not a good thing. Right. Like that's brought me a lot of negative things in my life, because friends or family or people have gotten together and I wasn't invited, or I find out last minute and they're like, oh, well, I figured you were working. Like, I can't tell you how many times I heard that in my life. Right. And they're like, well, I figured you would be working. And I'm like, no, and like, since my sister passed in 2013, that became a really big focus of making sure to like have planned family vacations, have planned family, friend time, and like just make sure that because that is something that is so important to me, but my schedule didn't show that. And my workaholism didn't show that, they're like, you say family matters, or you say that you care to spend time with your friends, but yet like that doesn't reflect, right? And I realized that. And so I learned how to balance, but it was really cool to like, get that awareness and go, oh, wow, like it's something I chose, during a time where I was really embarrassed, a lot was going on. And that actually led to one of my other strengths that I mentioned, which is my independence, right? Well, guys, why I'm so independent and I get shit done on my own. I've been on my own, since I was 17. Well, for those who don't know this, I was expelled again my senior year. I was arrested in December of my senior year. By the way, I was valedictorian of my senior class. I was head of the National Honor Society. I was captain of the basketball and volleyball team. I led praise and worship at my school, but I went to a small Christian college, and I also like to party my ass off, and I drank a lot. So I got into trouble. All right. And so I got kicked out for a second time. And then thankfully, by the grace of God, like the headmaster and the principal from my school went to my church. They knew my dad really well, and they're like deacons together. And, they were able to really support us. And because I had great grades and I was the top of our class, they went to the public school down the street and said, hey, we have a student who's like, passed all the class, like she's ahead of everybody. We don't have any more AP classes for her to take. We don't have anything else, can we transfer? And so I was able to transfer without that being on my transcript, and spring semester finish at the public school. And it was a really weird time. It was really hard because I worked my butt off always to like, have that, and, cried my face off watching the salutatorian give the valedictorian speech. And I just remember feeling so like, like, wow, like I just keep fucking up, right? Like, and I just remember like this having that on me, and I was like, no, like in our lives, like there's things that happen, and like we can choose to like learn and grow, right? Like, but there's automatically when we do stuff and we know like, oh, like we're not where we need to be, it's so easy to like put ourselves down, right? And we'll talk more about that, you know, during these next weeks of just like, again, I mentioned yesterday, what are you feeding your mind? What are you saying to yourself, right? But like what we've been through. And so with that, with the leadership, you know, that's something, or sorry, my independence, you know, again, you can be like, oh, that's really good. You've done all this stuff. You've accomplished, you've built businesses, all this stuff. Like, yes, yes, yes. But I've also pushed away a lot of people that I loved because I was embarrassed, because I didn't want to like show face, right? Like after like high school, and like I started this job, you know, 3 years, I'm going into my junior year of college. And I was like, oh no, I'm like, we start with people we know, right? Because like I was so like scared to like talk to people. I didn't want to see people. Like I was so embarrassed. And my mom made it very clear that I was an absolute embarrassment to our family, and that she couldn't stand the sight of my face. Like those were her exact words to me, you know. And that was really tough, you know. And there were years where I just I didn't understand that. And again, we're going to unpack some of these things with different lessons. But back to here, it's like, what are strengths that you've developed from something? All right. And so I want you guys thinking, but there are also things that on the opposite end of it, like when they're abused or it's too much, have caused negative things for you. Okay. And so I'm going to give you guys a couple minutes to just think about this for a second and look at them and think like, what's the earliest memory you can remember of like reacting to something? Like go through each one, because then you're like, no, that's not it. Like this is what we did. So at the seminar, we wrote the list of our strengths, right? And they said, so go through here and look and say, okay, like there's 2 tests to find out if it's your strong suit, right? Like one, can you connect it to a time where it was really drawn out, right? Where you reacted a certain way, did it a certain way. And by the way, that could be being reclusive, right? Like one of our, and just being like more quiet, more to yourself, you know, or being a great listener could come from like having been told or something happened and you were yelled at and told like your voice didn't matter or this didn't matter or whatever, you know, or maybe you talk too much and you don't listen. And so you became a great listener, right? Like that became a really big strength of yours. You became a really great listener. But on the negative side, it's like you hid the stuff, you know, you hid stuff that you had going on that you wanted to maybe you wanted to say, but you kind of lost your voice, right? That's the negative part, is you lost your voice because you never wanted to like be the one that talked too much and didn't listen or whatever. And so you became a great listener, but you also lost your voice, like on a negative side, right? And so I want you guys to just think about that for a second and look at it and say, okay, so again, the 2 tests are like, is it like, do you see the negative side of it, right? Like in excess or in abuse, can you see the negative? Then that could be one of your strong suits. And the second thing is, can you connect it to a time where you can see where it was drawn out? Like when did you first see that? And so I want to give you guys like a minute or 2 here just to look at your stuff and think about that, because in a couple minutes, we're going to split into groups and we're going to do some shares around this. And it's a really, for me, when I did this, it was a very freeing thing. It was really cool because what it did for me after going through this process was going like, wow, like these characteristics, these strengths that I thought I was like born with, right? Because my coach was like, it's not like you were like 3-4 years old running around like, I'm super independent, or like, yeah, you are, like my son's independent, but like there's things that draw it out, right? That really draw it out, and you see that. Or like, oh, I've got a really great work ethic. Like it's not like I was running around at 3 years old, like I've got a really great work ethic, right? Like that was developed through life experiences, and that's how I reacted. Where a friend of mine went through a similar experience, but instead of working hard, they said, F this, right? And they just like became very like to themselves, and like they just, people go through the same things and they react differently to it, right? Like my siblings and I had to experience some pretty tragic shit that happened in our family, you know, and some of like I reacted staying busy, like that's how I react, and like ignore and not deal with the problem, you know. One of my sisters got mad, she got angry, like she had so much resentment, anger, and like frustration in her heart, like, and she was just like like snap at everyone. Like that's how she reacted. Like she just got really angry with the situation. My other sister, she became very like sad and depressed. So here you have someone who's like getting more motivated, but really just ignoring the problems. You have another one who's like getting angry at everything. You have another one who's like just depressed and quiet and doesn't want to talk to anyone and has lost all motivation. Literally, Michelle was the opposite of me. Okay. So I'm like gung ho go. And she's like, I've lost all motivation because of this. And I'm like, I have all motivation because of this. I do not want this. I do not want this life. And then my brother was like, I'm so confused. I don't even know what's happening. And he turned to drugs and other stupid shit. Right. And then became really depressed and was suicidal. And we had to deal with a bunch of stuff there. Thankfully, he's incredible. And now he's like a life coach. He's a firefighter, city of Miami. He owns a business. Like he's a whole other person. But it's just interesting how we can all go through like we can go through similar things, right? Or siblings or people that know each like can go through the same experience, but yet how we react to them are differently. And that's what's happened through our life is like we reacted to things that happen and we reacted a certain way and it kind of became part of our DNA, right? Like it got embedded into us, like it was ingrained. And when things would happen again, we just like that became a comfortable, easy way. And the reason is because our brain had already connected. There was a neurological connection of like, oh, when this happens, here's how I react, right? And so then it becomes second nature. Like you're not even intentionally acting that way. It just became how you are. Everyone got that? It became how you are. And so you react a certain way and then it happened again. And then your brain was just like, oh, when this happens, here's how I react, right? And so that can get you to today where you feel like, God, this is just how I am. I don't understand why I'm like this. Well, let's understand. Because what happened for me is that when I understood, I was like, oh, and it brought me to this place where it was like, wow, so I can decide later. Like I can decide like how I want to be or who I want to be. All right. If you guys met me before 2007, anyone who like works with me, you probably would not want to work with me. And I was like a crazy explosive, like yelling, constantly. Like I walk, I'm like, what is going on? Like, and I always like, I was really good at making people feel really small. All right. I don't take pride in that, but it's just how I was. It's like, it's how I was. It's what I saw, right? It's how my mom was. My mom is, like I could have swept the whole house. I'm like, oh, I'm going to clean the house for mom. And I did everything. And she'd get home and she'd be like, why the hell is this room here? And I'm like, seriously? Like this place is spotless. Like, I'm sorry. I forgot to put the broom away. But like, she'd always find what was wrong, and like never acknowledge what was good. And it's something that like always hurt me, but yet that became wired in my brain. I didn't even realize subconsciously and became part of my being. And so here I am in my, like, I'm 23, 24, running my business, in my early 20s, and I'm getting to mid 20, right? At 25 years old. Which is when I was 2007, I turned 25. So it's like, I'm having this quarter of a century crisis, right? I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm a quarter of a century. Like I thought I was so old. And then I loved 30 and I'm so excited now I'm turning 40. But I just remember going through this and like evaluating, I'm like, who am I? I'm like nasty. I make people feel like shit, like all that stuff. I'm like, I'm a top achiever. Like we were number one in the company. In August, we had broken the all-time record by August, and we still had the whole fall. And I remember just being so unhappy. I was so unfulfilled. And I was like, this is not like what life should be like. This is not what I imagined when I was succeeding, what I would feel like, right? Like I imagined to have like, be in a great relationship, maybe have kids, like have a business, like be happy, be thriving. And yet I was exhausted. I was working like 18 hours a day, but like I hated it. I've worked that much. I could work more and I love it. And when I'm loving it, I'm just like, I'm like, oh my God, a whole day passed, I'm like, I have no problem, but I was miserable and the hours were so long and I was just hating my life, and I just started evaluating like where I was at. And I was like, dude, like, this is not cool. And I ended up going to the seminar, and I had gone through the seminar and I was like, okay, I'm turning 25. So this is when I was 24, but I was like, I'm turning 25. This is going on. Like, what changes do I need to make, And so I went to this because a friend of mine's like, look, you should really go to this. Like, you don't go to it because you're messed up. It's all about taking you from wherever you are to the next level of you. And I was like, huh. interesting. She's like, yeah, like it doesn't matter. Like you're going to see people pull up in Maseratis and Rolls Royces and like super successful people that are like, you'll meet them and you're like, they're amazing. Like they're not there because they quote unquote need help. They're there because they're focused on growth. They're constantly growing. The most successful people know that you never stop growing, right? I was talking to someone yesterday. I'm like, one of my mentors, and by the way, he's like buddy with Richard Branson. They were playing tennis last week. I saw him post on Facebook, them goofing around playing tennis together. All right. I don't know if you know Richard Branson, but pretty successful dude. And Chris Ryan, who's one of my mentors, we were talking and he's sharing with me things, and like literally every week he's like, okay, I'm going to be gone next week. I've got this seminar. I'm like, Chris, you're literally always at a seminar. And he's like, don't forget, the more you learn, the more you earn. He's like, Cathy, one of the biggest traits with the most successful people. He's like, and I get to rub, elbows with a lot of billionaires around the world all the time. He's like, they're always learning. They're always growing. He's like, they're reading, they're learning from other people. He's like, it's a common trait. And I was like, huh. Right. And so that's something that was ingrained in me as I was 25. I wish I would have been, that really would have been ingrained in my brain at 17, 18, 19 years old, because like, oh my God, like I just think about like, what could have happened like if I had gotten that earlier, right? But regardless, you're exactly where you're supposed to be exactly in your life right now. Own that. Cool. Because we all go through things and there's lessons that, we need to learn, and there's ways that we need to grow. And so own that. So anyway, by, having that awareness and understanding, like that's where you can reprogram yourself. Okay. So after we did this and they said, who do you want to be? Right? Like, how do you want to be? How do you want to show up in the world? How do you want to act? How do you want to react? And I remember writing that down. I said, I want to be patient. I want to be inspiring. I want to be, and I wrote down all these different things of like if I could, me 10.0, right? And like, yeah, if I was looking at myself and I was like, wow, I'm so proud of like who I am. Like if I was being described to people and they did this exercise, which we'll do in next week or the week after, but we did an exercise and it was like, if people are talking about you, once you're gone, like it's your obituary or we're at your, celebration of life, and they're talking about you and who you were and how you showed up in the world. How do you want to be described? And I was like, shit, I don't want to be described as this like tyrant, crazy, like, like bitch who made people feel like shit, like that's not how I want to be described, but yet that's how I'm feeling. And so I needed to make changes. But what was cool was understanding that like, just like a computer can be reprogrammed, guys, we can all be reprogrammed. Cool. We can all do that too. But all right, it's not as easy as pressing a button, right? Because we have to create new neurological pathways. And so, so step one, understand why we are the way we are. Step two, like, understanding like, oh, there were things that shaped and molded me, and I can intentionally make decisions for my future that can change how I act or react, right? I can choose to react different. I can choose to rewire myself. And so for those of you guys who have read my book or you're reading it, you're going to get to a section, and I think it's in the third part about how do you sustain it. And one of the things I talked about, one of the girls that I coached who her parents told her like, you're not going to, you're like, thank God you're pretty, like told her she's dumb, basically never gonna be able to get anything done, but at least she was pretty, so someone would marry her. Like it was awful, right? And I had to work a lot, and I didn't say her proper name in the book. I won't say it here, so I'll just call her Gabby for all intents and purposes. All right. But Gabby, like she really struggled with a lot of like self-worth, and being dumb and, all this stuff, which by the way, she's a badass entrepreneur who's been on TV multiple times. There's a lot of big things now. But when she worked with me, Gabby shared that she's like, one of my strengths is the ability to like lift people up and make them feel good. Right. And he's like, and do that. But like something, and she like, we were trying to unpack stuff, because she's like, but I just like, I beat myself up so much, like, I don't understand. Like, then I feel like when I'm doing that for other people, then I get down on myself. How come you can't do that for yourself? How come like, oh, because you're not worth it. And it sends her on this like awful, like rabbit hole. And we had to work through it. And I was like, all right, we have to create processes, because if you want to be different, like you've acted a certain way your whole life, you've reacted a certain way. It's become part of your inner programming, right? It's the way you are because you were programmed that way. And so we want new programming. So what is it that you want to program for yourself mentally, emotionally? Like, what do you want? And then let's make processes for that. And so every time she'd feel like down, she would say like, no, like, or be like her, or she'd hear in her head, like, I'm dumb. She's like, no, you're not. You're actually super smart. And you have all the tools and resources you need to make, or to move forward or to be super successful or whatever it was. Right. But she created. So every time she'd hear that voice in her head, right, telling her like, you're not enough or you're this or you're that, she had a process. And again, we're going to talk about that a different morning. But what we're going to do is we're going to split into groups, because step one today is I want to see if anyone can identify, like, is there a strong suit you can identify that is one of your biggest strengths that can also become one of your biggest weaknesses. Cool. And where did it root from? All right. Where did it root from? And Cody, I don't know if you have the rooms ready. So I'll wrap some here. The first step to making changes is self-awareness, right? Like really like owning where you're at. And so understanding why you are the way you are can really help you take ownership in making changes and adjustments to be where you want to be, right? For those of you guys who are, I know there's a handful of you guys who are going through my book right now. I recommend everyone, like, can you read even a chapter a week? Like a chapter will take you like, I don't know, 7 minutes, 5 to 7 minutes. But the bigger thing is are the exercises, right? And if you can do those and just start thinking about that, and it's about creating a life of intentionality, right? Like it's not about just accepting like, this is how I am, this is the way it is, this is the way it'll always be. It doesn't always have to be that way. Everyone understand that? And if you're like, man, I hate, like, I'm a super overachiever, or I do this, or like, but I don't like this stress that I like live with, right? Or this anxiety or stress of having to like be here or whatever, right? Or like, I hate this feeling of blank, like whatever feeling and like whatever negative consequences these things have. And it's like, okay, so what do you want? All right. And start thinking about that, because we're going to talk a lot about that. But again, first step to change is awareness. Like you have to have awareness of where you are, right? Like in any 12-step programs, like it's just like you have to own it, right? And acknowledge where you're at. And so keep that in mind. And we're going to be talking more about that. So